Question for you, friend. Is it worth it to make your own cookies? Or should you just get the tubes or the trays of the break and bake from the store, already pre-made? What do you think? What do you do typically? In this video, I'm gonna break down the homemade cookie versus the store-bought cookie. I want them both to have a crispy edge and a gooey middle, which they both do, even though they're different sizes, different shapes, and different colors. I tried to make this as similar as possible in terms of price comparison, ingredient comparison, and getting these prepped for the oven and baked to perfection. I'm gonna share my opinion at the end of the video on whether or not I think it is worth it to make your own cookie dough. But first, let's get to the ingredient and cost breakdowns. Let's take a look at the ingredient and cost comparison for store-bought cookie dough versus homemade cookie dough. I have a couple of options here just because if you have some sort of an allergen or intolerance, I wanted to highlight a little bit of that because we also deal with that at our house. So this is just a tube of cookie dough. This is the smaller tube. This will probably make, I think I could probably get 16 cookies out of this, maybe 18, depending on how skinny I slice these. But pretty basic ingredients: flour, sugar, chocolate chips, palm oil, water, and canola oil. And this is an allergen-friendly one that is gluten-free and, well, top 14 free. I usually hear top 8, but look at this. This is now top 14. So flour blend that is gluten-free, sugar, palm oil, chocolate chunks, water, molasses. I'm gonna bring in that brown sugar flavor there, and natural flavors, baking soda and sea salt. So this is a little closer to what you would bake, like if you were making homemade. So for a homemade version, I'm just gonna highlight these costs because salt, soda, sugar, flour, pretty low key depending on if you're buying, how big of bags you're buying, how big in bulk you're buying. But I just wanted to feature these because these are the ones you're probably gonna need to buy more of versus what you probably already have in your pantry. So butter and semi-sweet chunks and minis. Of course, you could just do morsels or minis as well, depending on how you like it. You could also do like a shaved chocolate. I also like to do that depending on if I want kind of a darker chocolate. I'll get a dark chocolate bar and then shave it down, cut it down into smaller pieces and shavings. Love doing that with chocolate chip cookies as well. Okay, I'm really getting sidetracked here. Okay, let's look at cost then. So this cookie dough from the store is $3.99, this guy, for probably 16, maybe 18 cookies. This gluten-free version is $6 for 12 cookies, which gluten-free is generally more expensive. At least that I found with having people in our family eating 100% gluten-free, that gluten-free products tend to be more expensive, but I'm always trying to hack that. And in one way is making homemade like we're doing here. So I told you there's gonna be lots of rabbit trails today, but all of this to just kind of give you a sense of how I think about these things. So $3.99, $6, okay? The butter, this is $2.65 for only using 2 sticks. We're not gonna use the whole thing. So half of that is $2.65. The chocolate chunks are $4.29 for this bag. The allergen-free mini chips are $5.50. So when we do a batch of this, we're gonna get 36 cookies for $2.65 plus $4.29. Let's round that up to 7. Let's add 75 cents for the rest of the ingredients. So $7.75 for 36 and $4.99 for, let's say, 16. So ounce for ounce, cookie for cookie, homemade is going to be cheaper, okay? And gluten-free as well. The gluten-free, even if we're using the more expensive mini chips, you get a big bulk bag of gluten-free flour blend plus the other ingredients. We're going to come in well under the $6 for 12. We're going to come in well under that if we use $5.50 plus the $2.65
plus I'll just double the flour, even though I don't think it's that much more. $1.52 for about $10 for 36 cookies and $6 for 12. So again, ounce for ounce, cookie for cookie, an allergen friendly cookie dough is definitely going to be cheaper to make it on your own. Now let's get to making some cookies so we can decide if the mixing and the time chilling, more on that in a second, is then worth it, the convenience worth it, even though we know this cost savings is there for making homemade. Is it going to be worth it to mix them up, chill them, and of course bake them? So let's get to doing that next. Okay, I'm gonna bring my mixer over. I have my stand mixer right here, and we're gonna start loading up the bowl with all of the homemade cookie dough ingredients. I'm gonna just go ahead and do regular dough, not the gluten-free, not the allergen-friendly version. So I'm gonna get the cookie dough started, and along the way, I'm gonna share some really important hacks for making the perfect cookies, one of which you might not like, but I promise it's worth it. I'll break it down for you here in a sec. Okay, we're gonna start with creaming the butter and the sugars. So I'm basically gonna do my twist on the recipe that's on the back of the chocolate chip cookies. I think it's the Toll House like basic. So I'm gonna add, I do that a little differently, and I'll explain it when we get there. We're gonna start with the butter. Okay, I just grabbed a knife. I'm gonna just scrape this off. Sometimes I know you don't have to butter your cookie sheets with cookies because there's so much butter in them. Sometimes I use these to grease the baking sheets. I wasn't originally gonna share that with you, but there you go, an idea. Or like a baking pan if it's not cookies that you're baking with. Okay, next 3/4 cups of brown sugar, 3/4 cups of white sugar. Okay, paddles in, and we're just gonna let that mix. When you start with softened butter, it really doesn't take very long for this to come together. So I'm just gonna watch it, and as soon as it comes together, then I'm gonna add in the 2 eggs and some vanilla. As soon as I see the last of the sugar on the bottom in the middle get swallowed up by the butter, there it is. You could even see it shaking there, my old mixer. Okay, we're gonna do a teaspoon of vanilla and 2 eggs. Here's another hack for you. Crack your eggs on the counter. You get a cleaner break and less likely for a piece of shell to go in. When you crack it on the edge of the bowl, it creates more little micro cracks, and it just increases the chances of little eggshell pieces, especially tiny ones, going in with your eggs. But when you crack it on a flat surface, you get a cleaner like single line break. So there's just less potential for little tiny eggshell pieces to be in, to go into your batter or your dough. Oh, another hack I wasn't planning on sharing, but there you go. Okay, that is looking perfect. A nice even consistency. I don't really see any like large pieces of butter. That would be the part I'm looking for at this point. So we're gonna go ahead and stop it and add in our dry ingredients. Should you mix your dry ingredients together in a separate bowl, you certainly can. That'll help evenly distribute, especially the soda, or if you're using baking powder or salt. I generally don't do that when I'm using a stand mixer because I trust that it's gonna incorporate everything really well. But if you're using one of the beater mixers or you're using elbow grease, then you might want to mix that up before adding into the rest of the dough. Here's where I stray from the back of the package recipe. I add more flour. I think it needs more flour. I've tried it both ways many times over the years. It needs a 1/4 cup more flour than what's on the back of the package. Okay, so we're gonna mix in 1 cup. So we're gonna do flour. Tap it inside of there. And I'm gonna do the teaspoon of salt. And right in there with the flour. Again, we do want it to evenly distribute, which it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna make sure that it's sprinkled among the flour that I just added. So we're gonna mix that up. If you have one of those shields, you can use it. You can also throw like a towel over the top or just do this. Especially if you're doing a full, if there's more in here, then you're gonna wanna have a little bit of extra help to make sure flour doesn't jump out of your mixer. Okay, again, this is where I'm straying a little bit from the package. This is a 1/2 cup of flour. The package would say 1/4 cup. So go with what works for you. I just like the cookies to be a little bit thicker. Looking beautiful. From here, I'm going to, just like I did before, get all of the dough off and then mix in the chocolate chips by hand. I usually use a spatula or like a wooden spoon. So let's get all of this off here. All right, we're gonna add chocolate chips. These are chocolate chunks, chocolate chips, minis, either whatever you like. I'm gonna add almost the whole bag. I might eat a few for a little snack. And we're gonna then fold this in. Here we go, we're gonna just mix these in. Just using my spatula, a little elbow grease. You could use the paddle on here. I usually do that for minis chocolate chips. Otherwise, the paddle and the large chocolate chunks, they don't necessarily get along in this bowl. They like fight and then they get broken and then it creates a mess in the bowl. So there we go. Nicely mixed. And here's the part you don't want to skip. Now that we have this done, here's what you need to know. Have you ever asked yourself why these cookies, why bakery cookies that you get from like, you know, the store bakery or bakery are cooked to perfection? The reason is the dough has had time to chill. In the bakery's case, it's been chilling. In the manufactured, in this sort of way kind of package, it has been chilling in the store. It possibly was frozen at some point before it was transported to stores. Chilling the dough is very important when it comes to getting perfectly cooked cookies. So this is the part I told you probably weren't gonna like because you want your cookies right now. You want to bake them right now. Well, here's a thought. Bake 12 and chill the rest of the dough. And then bake them and then compare them, right? I know, patience is a thing. It's hard, but chilling the dough will give you a better cookie result in the end. So that is the most important hack. I want you to chill it when you get to this point. Put a lid on this and put it in the fridge. A couple hours, come back and bake them and they will bake to perfection. Okay, silicone lid. This is going in the fridge. And then I'll be back to show you how you can freeze this dough to use later. So if you're doing a double batch or like while you've got all the ingredients out, you're gonna bake this batch, make another batch to freeze for later. I'll show you 2 ways that you can freeze this homemade cookie dough. Okay, let's talk about how to store cookie dough in the freezer. I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do this. I have foil, freezer paper, parchment paper. You could use plastic wrap if you want. I generally lean towards freezer paper or parchment paper. So, method, and I do layer this. I'm gonna layer this just to give it 2 layers of protection in the freezer against freezer burn. Okay, first method, we're gonna recreate this, basically log of cookie dough. So you would take your dough and you're gonna place it kind of in a line along the middle of your parchment paper. And then we'll just use the paper to form the log. Okay, I'm only gonna use part of this dough because I wanna show you the other way. So let's just leave it like this. Okay, so already kind of in a log. You're just gonna fold this down and basically smush it together. It's not gonna stick too bad, and form a log. Roll it up. This paper's so crinkly and loud. Roll it up. Give it a double layer for freezer burn prevention, and then freeze it. And then you can just
let it thaw, or slice and bake from frozen. You just add about 2 minutes to the bake time if you're cooking it from frozen. So that's method number 1. I'll set this aside. Method number 2, I'll just use freezer paper to show you the difference. I just cut this freezer paper. I'm gonna borrow this to keep it open. Keep it from rolling. Okay, method number 2 is you're gonna take a cookie dough scoop and you're basically gonna create your own like homemade break and bake. So you're just going to scoop out a scoop's worth and then put them in rows, basically like that other, the sweet Loren's, is it Lauren or Loren? I guess it could be either way. The sweet Lauren's cookie dough is where it's, you've seen this, Pillsbury has a version, the homemade bake and break, Annie's has some. So do however many rows and lines come in your batch, just like this. I'll do another row to show you. I'm gonna end up baking the rest of these for after school snacks today. Oops, one's trying to escape. So this is the second method. From here, you're just gonna freeze either the log or this homemade break and bake option. You're just gonna put them in the freezer. And then when you want them, you can either, again, take it out of the freezer, let it thaw in the fridge, or you can bake from frozen. You'll just need to add, like I said, a minute or 2 to the bake time, of course, watching. Now, again, the advantage to chilling or freezing and cooking is that you give the ingredients in this dough time to like chemically react. And that way, after they've chilled, you have these perfectly baked cookies that have a little crispiness to the edge and a little gooiness in the middle. Okay, let's fold this. Just gently folding this. And I don't think I made this foil big enough. Maybe I did. You're just gonna fold, look at this, it's like a little present of cookie dough. Also, that is a great point. You could gift this cookie dough. Make it like this, put it in a plastic baggie or some sort of a way to transport this and gift this to people. So both of these are going in the freezer. I am gonna put the rest of this in the fridge and bake these for later so I can show you how perfectly baked they are. And then I'll be back with a recap, in my opinion, on whether or not it is really worth it to make your own or buy store-bought cookie dough. The chilled dough effect. Crispy edge, doughy middle. Crispy edge, doughy middle. Now they look slightly different. Well, one's still on the silicone baking mat, but they look slightly different because these have the molasses in them and these do not. Also, these used an ice cream scoop, so they have a little bit of that like ridging going on. They didn't flatten as much as these did, but you can see that chilling the dough works in terms of getting that crispy edge and the doughy middle. There's another perfect one right there. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'll be right back with a recap and my opinion on whether or not it is worth it to make your own cookie dough or use it already pre-made from the store. Recap and my opinion. Here is the slice and bake. Here is my chilled scoop and bake. So the store-bought certainly wins for the convenience factor in terms of being able to slice and bake or just grab them from the container if they're already in that like tray format where you just grab them and put them on your baking sheet. The homemade version definitely wins on cost by a significant amount, both on the regular cookie that we have here or the kind of allergen friendly, whether it's gluten-free, dairy-free. Cost, homemade wins. Convenience, store-bought wins. Ingredients, the homemade wins. So by pure tally, homemade wins. I would say there are 2 instances in which I would use store-bought. One is if I'm making it with something else. So if I was gonna do like brookie bites where I would put the store-bought cookie dough in a muffin tin and add brownie batter on top. That will eliminate a big part of preparing the recipe. I can focus on the brownie batter and use these as sort of like the base for the brookie or the cup, if you will. So in that case, I would use it. The other case in which I would use a store-bought cookie would be if I needed a lot of cookies quickly. You could of course buy them pre-made from the bakery, but if you need them to be homemade for whatever reason, if you wanted that little homemade touch, or if you wanted to bake them and take them warm to a neighbor or something like that, maybe a store-bought would be a quick option. The other reason to do homemade, besides the cost, the ingredients, an allergen-friendly option, is you can just really play with so many different types of recipes. There's so many ways to make cookies. There's so many aspects you can change in the cookies, using a browned butter versus a regular butter, using different sugar ratios, using different mix-ins, different types of chocolate. I mentioned the shaved chocolate earlier. You can mix and match mini morsels and regular size morsels. There's just a lot of different ways that you can kind of play with a homemade cookie. So once you get the base recipe down, it's really fun to mix in the different types of morsels and other things that would make for a great cookie. Is it really worth it to make your own cookie dough and cookies? I think so. I certainly lean that direction. Cost, ingredient control, as well as different ways to add flavors and different mix-ins. That's why I lean towards homemade. I also will do big batches of cookies, both baking and freezing the dough. So it's just a really easy way to get a lot of cookies out of not too much effort in the kitchen. If you learned anything from all of the cookie hacks that I shared throughout this video, please hit that like button. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, we are releasing new cooking videos. We have different series going on. I'm really wanting to help save you money on groceries and equip you with cooking success in your kitchen. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, my friend, it's bye for now, and I will see you in the next video.